the data right now. Since you want to include the project name and contract number on these, we have to find out what's connecting these. So from the submittal package, we want to go to the associations tab. And you're going to want to find out what association strings are connecting the project and the contract to the submittal package. So we're on the submittal package. This is the associations tab. On the right-hand side here, you can see all the objects that are connected to it. These are named. Let's see if I can get bigger. It's kind of goofy on the screen when you make it bigger. These, thankfully, project and contract are named very obviously the contract and project. So what you want to do is click on try contract, and then you guys use standard contracts. So you click on that again, and you can see that this is a contract that this submittal package is connected to. But what you're looking for here is the string that it's using to be connected to it. This is the relation that ties the submittal package to the contract. So the submittal package is has a contract of 600 402C building 126 OP renovation, and it's connected via the CFI associated contract string. What you want to do is note this down, because we're going to be using this later to tell the report to only get contracts that are connected by this string. Next, you want to find the same deal for the project. So while you're here on the associations tab, we can click on project and then capital project, and you can see that the project this submittal package is contained in is the Long Beach, California Seismic Corrections Phase 2. And again, the string this time is contained by. I'm just copying and pasting these off to the side and noting, like, for this one, project association string. Once you, like, this is going to be, in your case, in your environment, this is going to be the same for every single submittal package. So for every single submittal package, it's going to be connected for the project to the project by this string. So once you know it once and you note it down, you don't have to keep doing it every single time. And if there's anything else you wanted to look up and connect, such as, again, people, there's other things you can connect using these strings and look for. But I don't believe we need to see any of those. Oh, the items. So your submittal items are going to be another one as well. And these are going to be very complicated. I would say, because the items use the intermediate still, it's going to be a little bit complicated to get these ones in there. I think for our session today, I will show you how to get everything but the items in, and then we can go over items another time, because that's like a two-step connection. It's going to be a little bit more complicated. Is that okay?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Is there a way?
Yeah.
Is there a way to pull data from the audit history as far as when something is resubmitted and when we send it?
Not from a regular report, no. But yes, you can pull data from it.
Okay.
Okay. So I will leave items out for this moment. Let me make sure there's nothing else I missed before I continue. Routing status, construction class. Okay, the rest of this should be fine. All right, so once you have gone to your submittal and you found out how it's connected to those items, or those other objects, such as the project and contract and items, which again we'll go over another time, you can, I would leave it open just so you can come back and reference it just in case you need to. Just minimize it. Go to your My Reports tab. You can do, I do system reports as an administrator, and I like the reports I make need to be accessible for everybody. And if you plan on sharing these reports, you should create them in system reports, because then you can mark them as a community report and you can let other people use them. So I would come to system reports, click new. You get the whole brand new blank report screen. And then we start filling in some information, such as the name of the report. We're going to do submittal package, so do Name it however you'd like. I'm following kind of the normal naming convention. If you'd like to use and develop one of your own so you can find your own reports faster, feel free. I can also send you, you can also see, actually, I'll show you. They all follow kind of a very similar naming convention, usually the name of the object, the business object, followed by either the state you're looking things up in, then followed by just a short description such as editable if it's an editable report. But in this case, we'll do a training report and we'll name it testing, that way it's obvious. This is a report that, this name doesn't show up when you run the report. This is how you can identify it on a more detailed level. This name here, the header, is the title of the report that shows up when you run the report. So this is what you want to appear on the print option and on the top left of the screen when you actually run it inside TRIRIGA. Next, we can fill in a type. For your cases, you're almost always going to want a report or a query. You can leave it as a report for now. Next is a data scope. So in this case, you want this report to have the project name and contract number. Now, do you want it to show all submittals from all projects and all contracts, or just the one you're currently in? Such as right now, we're in Long Beach Seismic Corrections. You want it to be limited to the report you're in, or do you want to run it and see everything?
I would say in the project that we're in.
Okay, so that would be active project. Otherwise, you would choose all projects if you wanted to see everything from all of the projects. Straightforward. And company, in this case, would act the same as all projects, but depending on what you're looking up.
Okay, what if we want to filter? We want to be able to do one contract in that project. Would we need to put a filter?
We can put a filter on later for that you can do while inside the project. Okay.
Also, we've always used the tagline to put CFM or VA.
Sure.
That way we know that it's ours.
Mm-hmm. See, that kind of naming convention is very good to have. Perfect. All right, and next we need to select our business objects. Actually, I take that back. I skipped over a spot right here. This shows community report. If you'd like other people to access this, and it would be available in the community reports tab right here. All you have to do is check this box, and then it'll show up there immediately. I'm going to leave it out so I don't clog it up. But now we need to select our submittal object or submittal package. So click on Add Business Object here on the right-hand side. This is going to be a little bit daunting at first, trying to find where things are. If you are trying to make a report and you don't know where to find it, please ask. We'll help you find it. Otherwise, it's going to take a little bit of digging. Submittal package is fairly easy, though. It's under the module Try Submittal. And then we find the submittal package under Business Object. And in this case, the form, which is this form here, this layout, and all the fields available on it. In this case, there's only one, so you can either choose all or submittal package. Whoops. And it'll work the same, but if there's multiple ones, choose the one that usually has CFI on it or has the name of exactly what you're looking for. Because if it's customized, it'll have CFI on it, and that's usually the one you're looking for. And again, if you ever doubt what you're choosing, just ask and we'll let you know which one's the right one. Okay. Once you have each one selected, they are highlighted like this. You just click OK. And now we can save, and then we'll add the rest of the business objects for the project and the contract. So now this is our base business object. So every result that comes in when you run the report, that means that when you click on any of those things, it's going to take you to the submittal package, no matter what information is displayed there. Like we're going to bring in the contract information, the project information. Even if you click on that information, it's still going to take you to the submittal package because that's what we're looking for. So to add the project, we click on Add Business Object again. And now we have a little bit of a different screen. We see associated options down here. This is because we're connecting another business object that we're looking up in conjunction with our base one, if you will, the submittal package. So if you remember back from our project, it's in the module try project. And here we have a lot of business objects. In your case, we're looking for capital projects. And this is where we look up our associated string, which is contained by. So there are going to be hundreds of options in here, and they're in alphabetical order. What I would recommend you do is I think you can just begin typing, and it'll search for you. So I just typed in is contained by. Once you have that, you click OK, and you can see that it's kind of offset underneath it because it's a kind of like a secondary one that's being chosen. And as with TRIRIGA, always save often. So I'm going to save one more time. And then I'm going to add another business object and make sure you have the submittal package selected because we're looking for the connection from the submittal package to the contract now. If you were to have the project selected and click Add Business Object, it would connect it to the project instead of the submittal. So with submittal package selected, click on Add Business Object one more time, and we're going to add the contract. Again, module, thankfully it's an easy one, it's try contract. And we're looking for standard contract, which would be down here. And our associated option was CFI associated contract. So we can just start typing it in. And you can see there's some similar ones here. This is associated contract 4, but we just want associated contract. Oops. See, and sometimes the typing doesn't work. So you're gonna have to look for it because that's the first result and it's always gonna bring up the first result. Here we go, CFI associated contract. With the contract selected, we're good. Associated options, all right. Click OK once more. And now we can see that it's offset again a little bit from submittal, letting you know it's kind of a child that's looking up for a connection. Save once more. Now, before I continue on to adding the columns you want to look up and showing the report and getting into the filters after that, were there any questions about this before I continue on?
The business object and selecting, are we always going to be selecting that same thing, or is it going to change depending on the type of report we're trying to create?
It depends on what it's a very kind of very open question. It really depends on what kind of report you're going to be making, but for everything, in your case, for every project that you want to bring in, it's always going to be a capital project at the moment. For every contract, it's always going to be a standard contract. Okay. So that shouldn't change anytime soon that I'm aware of.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Arthur, I've noticed that you're not Are you
I am recording
the session?
Yeah, I should be. I clicked it.
Yeah, the button.
Recording. Yep, it's gone. All right. Continuing on, next we can move to the these. So before I continue on, let me go through these here. These we're not going to be using at the moment, but if you'd like to randomize your results, you can do that here. You can change your result size, change your column counts, and so on. These, the only one I really think is really important for you guys here is if you're ever looking up a lot of data and it seems to run really slow, use this option here, prompt before query. What it's going to do is it's going to run the report, or when you run the report, excuse me, it's going to show up with no results. It's going to wait for you to type in some filters to narrow down the result set first, which could mean a a faster return time on the report. That's probably the most important part here. This other stuff here is the result size. If you like to show 500 results by default, you can do that here, or 10, and so on. Random result count, I don't see being useful for you guys because you always would like to see everything. This will show you, like, you put 10 in here, 10 random submittal packages, for example. Related reports, if you're making other reports and you want to link them to this report, say they're similar, you can do that here. In security, if you'd like to limit who can see the security by their groups, you can do that as well. But most important one is business object, so you can't continue on without doing this. So columns. This tab here is where you select what data you'd like to see. And they populate in the order you select them. And since you have a very nice list for me, I will do them in the order. What you want to do is first select the business object the information is coming from. For example, you said you want the project name, so I'm going to click on project. And these are going to be in alphabetical order according to their field label. If you're not sure what the field is, I'm going to open up the project name. So it's very easy in this case. You want the name field, right? You can always come in here and look up what the name of the field is. And this is not going to be 100% way how to do it because sometimes the name is edited on the form and could look differently than what it shows here. So normally, in most situations, for the name, for example, look through the field label, find N, name, and you check the box, and it's going to add name there. And if for some reason, for example, it was the field label was changed on the form, which happens sometimes, it would say like project name here instead of just name, but it would still just say name while you're making the report. You're either going to have to learn how to use the form builder and check that information and make sure you're grabbing the right fields, or you learn from building reports over time what the names are. Name is easy. It's almost always going to be name as a label, and on the back-end side of TRIRIGA, it's always try name. So that one's very simple. And when you add it, it's going to take the default field label as well as name. What you want to do is, because name being a very common one, add in a descriptor to it, in this case, project name, so you can differentiate it from other names. Next, we want the contract number. So we're going to come to the contract, and you can start by looking up just contract number. This is CFI ECMS contract number here. That is most likely the correct one. And when you run the report, it's going to be very obvious if it's not or not. Check the box, contract number, and then we want the date that the submittal was created. Now, I like to come back and make sure I check all this information, because would you like this date here? Would you like the system's date that it was created, such as this one here? Because this one, for example, this one can be modified when it's created, while the one on the system field is generated.
I would say the one that can be modified, because if they end up doing a submittal through an email and they go back and enter it, that's the date that we want.
Sure. So again, should just be date. And this is where you can find if information is mismatching after you create the report. I'll show you how to check at the end the exact names. So we're on the submittal. Now we find the date, click date, add it to the list. And you wanted that labeled date created, so you just type in the report label here. Next would be the ID, and again, ID is straightforward. ID there, and you can always double check on the submittal package. This is the ID field you're looking for, correct? I'll take that as a yes. And I'll come back and just check the ID box. And you can leave it as ID, you can name it submittal ID, whatever you like. And then the name, very straightforward. Just find name in the list, check the box. And this will become second nature for you guys real quick. And then we're looking for revision, which should be right here. Check the box. Return date, required date, construction class. And then we're skipping over the item stuff for right this moment. And then you said routing status. Whoops. Do you mean this status here? System status? Such as if it's review in progress, draft, and so on?
I would think so, because we want to know if it's completed or if it's still in progress.
Sure.
And we would know that we're not looking for an end date yet.
Mm-hmm. That'll just be the stats field. And then we can name it, if you'd like to put system or routing status on there, you can go right ahead. All right, when you have all your fields selected, you can click save and then commit that data. And then what I like to do when I make reports is I like to just, without doing any filtering on it all, I just like to run the report and make sure I'm seeing stuff I'm expecting to see. For example, if say you picked like the wrong date field and like there's just a whole bunch of blanks, it'd be obvious. Like in the project name field, maybe these are old and there's an issue with these grabbing the project name. So there could be issues like that. But let's see, you're going to see some, there could be multiple things connected to these causing it possibly to show up twice. There's lots of things that could be going on. I wouldn't panic about anything you see here that's weird. But you also see that since we're not doing any filtering yet, we're pulling in histories. So these history ones are probably things that we would filter out at the end. But everything looked good as far as what you're expecting to see normally. Yep, this is a good start, I'd say. So as long as you're happy with what you see, you just close this and come right back to working on your report. I skip the order and group tab until after I'm done doing my filters. So fields you would like to filter on. Since we are in the active project data scope, we're automatically filtering on the current project we're looking at. So you wouldn't necessarily need a project filter, but you can add one there if you'd like to possibly modify it later on. I wouldn't add one in this case because you're always going to be looking at the project you're in, but I would add one for, hold on. My email notifications are, 1 second. They keep stopping the screen share. Close that. There we go. So for the contract number, for example, there might be multiple contracts. So I'll just come in here. You'll see that there are 2 checkboxes now because we have a user checkbox and a system checkbox. The user filter checkbox means it's going to be a filter that the user can type into and filter on by themselves. The system one means that it's going to be a filter that's enforced whether the user wants it to be or not, basically. If you want to force it to always look up things that are in draft, you could do that with a system filter and the user doesn't have a choice. But we're going to be using a user filter for the contract number so they can type in their own choices. So we're in contract, let's find the contract number. And the left box again is a user. You'll see it comes under the user filter columns right here. The report label will be the name that comes over here. And then the filter operator. These are going to be, I have a document I can send you explaining how each of these works, but the default is contained, where they're going to type something into the report filter field, and it's going to bring up all results that contain what they've typed in. So if in the contract number they type in 101F or 0052, something like that, for each result that has whatever they typed in, it's going to filter it down to there. If you like it to be strict, you can do equals, so that to type in case sensitive, the exact contract number they're looking for. But contains is always a good default. Next, would you like to have a filter field for date created? We can add it doing the same thing. Make sure you check the left box, find the dates. I just saw it, and it's going to be here. And dates are a little bit different. They have after, or more than or equals, before, less than or equals, equals, and not equals. After, again, is the most common. If you'd like to have 2 filters on the same field, you see I can't check the same box twice. Once you have it checked, though, make sure you have it selected on the user filter column section over here. and then you can just copy it. And now you can have two filters on the same field. So for example, if you wanted to give them the ability to select or query all submittal packages within a certain week, for example, after April 1st, but before April 7th, you can do that like this. I'll leave that in for now so we can see how it works later. The ID field is not one that they might filter on too often, I imagine, because it's very long and convoluted, it looks like, to filter on, and they can usually use a contract number to find what they're looking for. But it functions the same way as the contract number, since it is a text field. You have contains, equals, starts with, ends with, and so on. The name. Revision number, if you wanted it, you could have it. You would just check all these boxes for each one you're looking for. Return date, acquired date, construction class. The case isn't particularly strict because it's going to add the filters to the columns. But for example, when you have two of the same one, it's not going to have it's not going to duplicate the column. It's going to do is it's going to add a secondary filter field above them, and I'll show you what I mean by that in just a second. So you have the construction class, and then the routing status. And the routing status is one that you're going to want to use a user filter for, and then a system filter for, because we're going to want to ignore submittal packages that are normally, and correct me if I'm wrong, but retired in history, because the history ones are basically previous revisions and their data could be confusing if you're looking them up. And retired ones are retired for a reason. They've been essentially, retired is a good way of saying they're deleted, but not lost. So we have a use, yeah.
If we're looking for, say the submittal has been resubmitted 3 times, and we're looking for the dates from those history, then we would leave the history in with it?
If you wanted to, yes. Yeah.
Because that's one of the dates that they're looking for, is the date it was originally submitted, the date we originally sent it back, the date it was resubmitted, the date we sent the resubmission back, and then same if there's more than one revision. So those are some of the dates that they're looking for.
Yeah, so you would have to use, you could use history or you could use the audit to look that up. There are 2 different ways. So if you want to leave the histories in there, you can, but again, they're going to be, make sure the people who are looking at it are aware that they're seeing history records. Otherwise, they might get confused. That's all. In this case, I'll leave them in, but I will exclude the retired ones because those are effectively deleted. For status, we want to be strict with this. We don't want to use a filter operative contains. In this case, we want to do not in. And again, I have a whole document I have explaining how each of these works, but not in is basically another way of saying not equals, which is up here, but it's much more strict. So when using in or not in this case, it's going to look up all submittal packages that are not in the status because they have a status field selected. In this case, I'll do retired. And when using in or not in, you have to surround your values in single quotes. If I wanted to put history on there, I would put comma, and then single quote history as well, just like that. And using in or not in is case sensitive, and again, very strict. So we have now added our filters. We are now excluding all retired submittals based on their status. If we run the report, just take a look what we have so far. We now see all of our filters up here. And you'll see that the date created filter only shows 1 right directly under the field. And if you click out of it, currently you can see it's saying after. If you wanted to use the before date created as well, you do show more filters, and it says it right here. And now you could change this date to say date created. I'll do that real quick so it's a little less confusing. you would want to change this to say date created. I think you match this one as well. And then let's run it. I'll show that to you. So again, date created. This is after, and then we click on show more filters to bring the other one up. This is before. So if you wanted to look up everything after June 27, 2014, but before 11/14/2016, you could by using both of these fields. For our status, since we excluded retired, if we were to look for retired records, we shouldn't find any. We should have no results. And you can see we left history records in here as well. Next, if you'd like to, since we're including history records, what I'd recommend is to group these records up by their ID. There are some stipulations when it comes to grouping. When you use a group by, you lose the amount of results per page. What it's going to do is it's going to show you all of the results. And I realize I just did that, but if you just come to the group by section, find your column that you've selected that you wish to group by, and then you click the arrow right to bring it over here. And if you have multiple ones, it's going to do it in a specific order. So for example, it would group by ID first and then revisions. In this case, we just wanted an ID. So I'll save. And if you wanted to order it, you could, but I'm going to leave that out for now because I want to show you that when you use the group by function, it's going to show you all the results on the page, which might slow down the report loading time. There we go. So now it's all on one page, and it's grouped by the ID in this case, which is good for history records. So we can see that this is the ID, this is grouped by, and we see all of the information for even the history records and the completed records, or whatever status it might be in, issued, this one here. If you don't see any history records, that means there are no revisions. Let's see if we can find one real quick, like this one. Okay. Order by, if you wanted to also sort in ascending order by ID, you could select the ID or the name, whatever you want to sort by, and click the arrow to the right with an up arrow kind of pointing off of it. If you see that there, that would be for ascending, or with a down arrow coming off of it for descending. If you had any money values you wanted to sum, in this case, would it make sense? The only number value you have is revision, but say there's a money value here and you wanted to sum it up, you just check this box here and it will put in extra result at the very end of the report, summing up all of the results. The advanced tab is one that you're probably not going to be using right now. This can deserve its own tutorial, if you will. This is how you could limit results based on how a submittal is connected to another record or a number of things. But that again, we can go over that in its own session. The Where Used tab, if this was used in any workflows or any portals, for example, that would show you here. You can get in then a history of changes if you were tracking history here, and then the revisions and who they were by. You get to see if anyone messed with your report. That didn't take as long as I thought it would. Were there any questions? Because then I can show you how to get items in there as well. Okay, and for your submittal items, so this is going to be a two-step association here. So the first thing I want to do is come back to our submittal package, check our associations tab, and identify how our, in this case, submittal items are connected with an intermediate, and then that intermediate goes to the submittal item. So we're looking for the intermediate. In this case, it would be try intermediate. And then we see it's connected to the Submittal Intermediate. We'll click on that to see how it is connected with that string has item. So I'm going to note down that my string is has item, and that's how it's connected to the Submittal Intermediate. But I'll click on it to show you. You come back here and click on the item. Right now, if we were just to go to make a report using that Submittal Intermediate, we would only be able to pull information from this form right here. This is all the information we could pull. So now on the Submittal Intermediate, we go to the Associations tab, and then we find how it's connected to the item, which is in this case called a task. Click on Try Task, try Submittal Task, and we see that in order to get from the intermediate now to the item, we need the string is intermediate 4. While you're going through, I would also note down all the names of these here. So the module, which is in yellow, and there's a legend up here for you. I can make that bigger. Modules are yellow, business objects are gray. Write those down until you become very familiar with them. But our Submittal Intermediate is connected to the Submittal Task via the string is intermediate 4. Can I just get that? I'm going to note that down over here. Is intermediate 4. Submittal Task. So now we know how to get from the Submittal package to the Submittal Intermediate to the Submittal item itself, which is right here. And I'm going to open it up and just leave it open so I have the information available. If you're unsure if you need to bother looking up the association for an item, anything that is listed as like a result of a report on the Submittal package, in this case, on the form, that is definitely, this data isn't like on the Submittal package, it's definitely linked from somewhere else. You'll have to look up the association. Anything that is underlined, for example, like this, you can look up by association as well, but it also might be on the form as well because it might be filled in via a smart section, which is another form of how to bring in data to this record from another record. So let's go back to our report. This one here. Now we know that we are looking to bring in the Submittal Intermediate first from the Try Submittal. So make sure you have the Submittal selected. Add business objects. Want to find a Try Intermediate. And then in here we want to find a Submittal Intermediate right here. And our association string was has item. So we just type that in, has item. Click OK. And then from here, we want to go from the intermediate to the Submittal Tasks. So make sure you have the intermediate selected now. Click on Add Business Object. Change your module to Try Task here. And then you want Submittal Task right here. And our association string for this was is intermediate 4. And now you can see kind of how this tree structure breaks down. The intermediate is like indented from submittal, while the task is indented, the try task is indented from the intermediate. And we can click save. Then we can come to the columns field. And we want the items and the item status. So let's find the items on the left here, which was the task. Click on it to select it. So we would want the item name, I assume. Name. If there's no just name, maybe you should look up try name. There it is. Try name is always good on the line. This is called task name instead of just name. Check that box, and you can see I added it right underneath the first result, or the first column. If you want to move that around, you can do that using these links up here. Move up, move down, move to top, move to bottom, or remove. Just make sure you have the right column selected. So I want to move this down to be under the construction class. So I'll move it to the bottom and then move it up once. You see I moved it to the bottom and move it up once. Put it right underneath construction class. And then I need to add the status as well. Is this the review status or the system status, such as like draft? Or are you looking for this status here? 1 second. So are we looking for this status, or are we looking for, I believe I closed it, this status?
That status right there, Arthur.
That one? Okay, so that is going to be, that is only available on the intermediate. So we just have to make sure we select it from the right place. If you come back to the report, make sure we come back and select the intermediate. And here we need to look for review status, as that was the name of the field. We want to get, this is tricky here, there's two. In this case, you're going to want the list field. So I check that. I click save. Now, one thing you're going to notice immediately is that there are going to be duplicates. It look like they're going to be duplicates for any submittal package that has multiple items. And this is going to look very crazy because we're also ordering on a different thing. So what we want to do, that's going to be very confusing to look at. Instead of, we still want to sort on the ID. Here, let me show you. So it's sorting on the ID, but since you're also bringing in information from another record, it treats it as one result each time. Here's one, for example. You bring in your submittal here, and you're also bringing in the task name here. And is this the same one? I believe it is. Is it? No, it's not. A lot to look at. Very similar though. So it's, in this case, since you're bringing in a lot of data, it's going to be very confusing to try and sort on the ID of the submittal package itself. You play around with the sorting and do multiple sortings. This is where the history also becomes very confusing. So let's try and clean this up. See what it looks like when we're not doing any grouping or any sorting. See, and that's just kind of chaos. There's no guarantee it's in any order because it's going to show, see if I can find one. That's going to give no results, I believe. When you copy and paste things and nothing comes up, make sure there's no extra spaces on the end or before the string. So here, this one only has one task, but it's also showing you all the history records for the submittal package itself. So it's showing you all those history records for the submittal package, but only showing you the one task. So this could be misleading for someone who's looking at it because these history records are history. They're saved and made after each revision, but they don't maintain the connection to the submittal task because the submittal task, in this case, it doesn't have its history, or we're not looking it up, so they're not linked here either. So that's where the history might get confusing. If we were to take the history out, we could do some ordering on the submittal ID or name again, and it would make it look a little better. But bringing in historical data will always muddy up your reports a little bit. But in its current state, it is an unsorted report that you can look up a lot of information on. If you want to look up based on contract number, do that here. This is the only one that looks like for that contract. And in this case, you see how there is no task name. This is an older one, so that's before they're doing it properly, I imagine. They weren't making individual items for each of their submittals. So there's no missing data here, and you can double check it to be sure by just clicking on it and looking in the items list. Once it loads. there are no items, so it's going to give you no results in the task name and review status because there just are none. So let's, just to see if we can make it look a little prettier, we're going to sort on the ID, and we don't want the task name. We'll order by ID as well. So with the history records in there, it's going to look still choppy, in my opinion. This might be perfect for what you need. Just from looking at it, it might look a little off. So we are sorting by ID, or grouping by ID, I'm sorry, and then sorting by ID as well in the ascending order. So now we see, see if we can find one that shows multiple items. Because it'll look like duplicates. Here's one, maybe. Let's double check. Yeah, so there are 24 tasks on this one, and it's bringing in, well, first of all, they all have the same name, so that's very misleading, but different descriptions. So that's why that one looks like duplicates. But you can see a lot of the data is duplicated on the submittal part here because it's going to tell you the project, the contract, and the date from the submittal each and every time, even though it's all the same. But it's not going to duplicate the ID because we're grouping by that. So it only shows it once, and when there's a blank beneath it, that means all of these have the same ID. So I don't know how you best would like to see this report. There's a multitude of ways you could do it, but again, you can play with your grouping here and your ordering here to get it exactly how you'd like to see it. And that would be how you make a report in TRIRIGA using the native functions. Anything that I went too fast on? Any questions? Anything I may have missed, Yvette?
No, Arthur, are you going to put this on YouTube?
I certainly can.
Awesome, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Lori, Nicole, anything from you guys?
I think it's just going to take us a little bit getting used to where to go to find the.
Yeah, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I can show you, here we have a couple minutes. I can show you, for example, let's say, I can show you how to check information, like, let's say like this says system status here, right? But when you're making a report, it shows up as just status, right? It doesn't say system status here, it just says status, but those are the same fields, I promise. They both use the tri-status CL, and you would double check that using the form builder. That's something you have to keep an eye out for. The names might not exactly match up. And if there's any confusion there, I can show you how to look it up probably when you run into it, because it can be very, it's using the form builder and you just gotta be careful what you're doing in there. And with 3 minutes left on our meeting. Yeah.
We don't have access to the form builder per our contract.
No, they don't?
So, no.
Okay. So then we can help you with that then. It doesn't happen often, but it's usually things like that where it says system status instead of just status. All right. Yeah, that's all I got. If there's no questions, was there anything you want to go over, Brent or Yvette? I'm gonna stop my recording.
No, you did pick one of the hardest ones to go over. But like Arthur said, you have to